What is going on, traders? Alright, so I'm going to go over the Gann box here, the Gann Square. Just one of many uh, squaring methods, but just the levels that I have here are the Fibonacci sequence, which was kind of taken, obviously this is the all-time low here, but this is actually below zero, and there is no, the way that I plot out my Fibonacci sequence is I want to take a high to a low to project a Fibonacci sequence forward. And yes, I say Fibonacci, not Fibonacci, but so this is really the first swing that actually has a positive number of zero point zero 0.01. Projecting that forward, we're still at 0.01 for the first 1.618 measurement, and then I'm just adding these two. So zero point zero 0.01 plus zero point zero 0.01 gives us 0.02. And then we continue the Fibonacci sequence from there. So 0.02 to zero point zero 0.03 comes to point, sorry, zero point zero 0.02 plus zero point zero 0.01 comes to 0.03, and so on and so forth, which is actually the actual Fibonacci sequence, right? So you got 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, etc. Onwards indefinitely, right? And when you look at it from a logarithmic perspective, really creates some nice equidistant projections there, just standard levels, which you can do a bunch of things with. From the regular kind of scale, you can really see that Fibonacci growth taking place, right? Very nice. But for this, I wanted to talk about um, ways to that I find are most effective for a Gann squaring method. And there is a bunch of different ways out there. Um, you can be very creative with this. And I feel like you almost need to be for every different market that you're doing this analysis on, because you really need to like tune the math into that market, really impose the math to fit the chart data. And the easiest way to do that, especially if you're new, is just to make it in line with the historical data. And then obviously create on here on TradingView, create an idea, project it out, and see how it plays out. um, but typically, from my experience and my back testing, which is a ton of Gann work, this any squaring method and any squaring or any Gann work that you can seem to that seems to have respect in the historical data generally will do well in future data as well. And that's because it's just a mathematical overlay. You're just overlaying math to specific time and price designation. So for this particular squaring method, I'm going to take the most previous fiscal quarter. This works with astronomical quarters. You can do astronomical years. You can do business years. So, astronomical year would be March to March, when the Earth is at 0 degrees and completes a 360-degree rotation. Or you can do like the fiscal year, January to January. I have the fiscal year and its quarters plotted out here, and I'm just zooming in on the daily chart to the most recent completed fiscal quarter, right? And so for that, I'm going to lay a trend line rather, from the high to the low, just the most dominant swing within that quarter, and I'm projecting out time sequences, right? So it's just a one Fibonacci time zone method, and it's projecting out 1, 2. It's projecting out the Fibonacci sequence, which these time frames are decent in the future as well, usually. But most importantly, we're just looking for that two time frame um, that we're looking at here. And then you want to grab the Gann fixed square, and you're just lining up. And I'll just click it here. So this is the square that you want to line up, and I'm going to line it up when they intersect there. When it intersects right where the 2 time frame intersects the trend line. So I'll just remove that and do it again here. And that is just about right there. Alright, that's that Gann square period is lining up with the trend line. And then the first thing you want to do is adjust the time. so that your trend line is in line with the center kind of fan or center line here on the fib or the Gann square. And then you want to extend and project out, so stretching out here so that the orange box here, time cycle, is in line with the two. And then you're just right clicking and locking your scale. So now you can scroll in and out. You've locked the scale in place. All right. So for this, you have your 1/4 of your Gann square has been laid, and so you can project it out properly here. I always just put another one here, so we'll be at 600, and like I said, it is 1/4. You want this number to be divisible by 4, so it actually creates an even number, not like a 0.5. Um, so that looks pretty good. 600 is what we'll be going with here. And just to give you an idea of how it looks in past data, project that out to 600, and you can complete the square to 600. And then we're just looking at this historical data, right? Now, pretty good result. I mean, the levels seem to be holding, bouncing between levels. Price kind of riding this arc to the upside before dropping into the fan here. It then rides this arc to the downside. The time cycles coming into play nicely. Again, kind of respect of this arc. We kind of pass above it, holding this middle trend line. After making contact with it, we kind of ride the middle trend line to this level. It drops back, touches the arc again, really using it for that general support before rallying into what you would be, which again, you don't have this information until here, but this just lets you get an idea that you may be pretty much well in tune with it, right? So after the fact, which is the only place that it's actually helpful, you can see, yeah, price kind of rode this arc here, and then it has immediately shot upwards, and basic targets would be contact with this middle line, but you need to clear this arc, right? So this arc can come into play. We are at a key time cycle as well, which we did see. We rallied straight into it, dropped since, and came back. But general targets would be making contact with that 50% or that middle fan that you're looking for, and that could happen, way up here. It might meander and could happen way up here, right? So there's different ways to try to tune into things. Conversely, and this is where the creativity comes in, all right, so I'll just remove all of this here, or you can even hide it because this is a valid square that we've created. Conversely though, you can square it a little bit differently, right? And this is where the creativity, for starters, what data are you squaring? In this case, I'm doing the fiscal quarters. What time cycle are you using? And how are you squaring it, right? Like some people will just square it to this point right here. So they'll line up the square with like right there to the bottom side of that. So that would be a valid square right there. And you can literally see, price seemed to kind of ride things out here. It doesn't look too bad. Other people will use different squaring methods for time. They'll use a 1.618, or maybe they want to do units of 10 to get bigger squares. Maybe they want a 0.618. They don't want to square it to as much data. There's a lot of creativity that can come in with this, and that's the fine tuning. But previously, I adjusted it to the center point. I can adjust it to the most extreme part here, and then instead of lining up here, the orange line to the 2, I could drag it back to make it a little bit smaller and tighter square, and in which case we basically came right into that, right? So there's so many different ways that you can tune into this data. That's really all you're trying to do though, is create the Gann structure and it has to be divisible by 4. Um, you know, and so this looks fairly decent, right? Like price kind of respected this arc, respected the fan, kicked back up, and we've since came into that key time cycle, and now we're getting resistance with price kind of rolling off of this arc. Is price going to flop? And in which case, immediate targets would be back down here. At very least, likely contact with this fan again. Possible time cycles come into play. Or is price going to really kind of and this is what I feel is the most easiest behavior to find and what you would want to try to tune into to create a reasonable and consistent trade strategy, is to have price rally into that middle point. We're looking for price to eventually get to this midpoint here. Um, so there's, again, different ways that I'm squaring this data, right? And you can take the same data and if I just remove this fixed thing here, I can pop on the other squared data that I already have, and your chart starts to get a little busy, but kind of creates like multiple dimensionality, right? It's almost like this smaller one that we just did is kind of sitting on top of this bigger one, which is more of like a flattened base. You've got like multi-dimensioned geometry that's kind of going on that you want price to ride throughout, right? Tuning into the market is what it's all about, though. Now, if I just kind of add some generic um, ICT projections, you could consider this a market maker buy model that's shaping up, and we've been respecting these lows here. We've been trending higher, so basic projections for something like this would be here, which would bring us to a 2. A projection, we have just reached the 5. Let me rather just put on this path. We have just put on, we have cleared into this 1, and seems to have, not only cleared it, but came back to it, possibly using it for support, possibly using this fan arc as support, and then general targets for the next level up on the market maker standard deviation extensions would be the 2 to 2.5. That could come in something as aggressive as that, especially if Bitcoin were to go further higher here. A lot of the times when those projections happen, it will clear this 2 to 2.5, possibly coming up to something like this, before, coming up to something a little higher like that, before coming and maybe finding support on the 2 to run higher again still, right? So, but really just wanted to make this about the Gann Square and how there's no right or wrong way to trade it. I think the easiest, and just from all my back testing, the most consistent thing that will fulfill is going to be the um, the fan, the middle fan part coming back into play, um, which we've yet to do. So that kind of is in line with an ICT potential 2 extension here, right, to drive us a little bit higher. That could very well happen here. We could be looking at that, and in my opinion, that would correlate a short on the U.S. dollar, which could happen. Not what I want to see, honestly. I would like to see this not be a valid market maker buy model. I would like to see this basically just be a sweep of liquidity and really changing directional bias through your general kind of trading perspective. We're at the top side of one of these key Fibonacci levels. We could see that hold. We do have like basic support. This is where the market rallied before. We could see that act as resistance to drive us lower here. So really indecisive kind of time, in my opinion. There's a potential, and there usually is potential for a market to run or flop, but I think this was just, I hope I was able to show the kind of the creativity aspect of the markets when you're just imposing the math and being creative with it. But anyways, I'll wrap this up here. Peace.